Hi, I'm that feral friend that your parents tried to warn you about that likes to hang out in cemeteries, and today I'm here to talk to you about witchcraft. Today we're going to be talking about the lost art of using your voice and sound as an instrument in witchcraft. I also want to take this moment to put in this disclaimer. I know that sound isn't around for all of us, and it is a privilege to be able to hear it because not everybody can. Now, this is going to be somewhat of a two-part video, so if you're catching this after both halves are up, I'm going to link it up over here somewhere. I don't know what side, but it's also going to be in the description if you're watching me on a TV. I don't think it plays. And if you're watching me on a TV, your house looks awesome. Just saying. And also, I'm curious, what state are you watching from, or what country, or what town? I'm just kind of curious. It's kind of cool. Because I can't really travel, so it's nice to know that video version of Crystal kind of can travel around from place to place and what place I've kind of been. But again, once both parts are complete, it'll be linked up here. If it's not linked up here, that means it's going to be next week's video. But the second half has to do with somatics and dream magic, otherwise known as honoric magic, and brainwave entrainment, and connecting to all of that as just one example. So again, if it hasn't been linked up or if it's not in the description, that means that part 2 is next week's video. So stay tuned for that, or if you're not subscribed yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it, but absolutely no pressure. Anyway, as I'm talking about these things, I'm sharing my experiences with them and how they worked for me and how I utilize and work with them. I'm hoping that it can help some of you guys in your practice. I want to remind you that my way is not gospel. And if you don't do things the same way as me, that's totally fine. That's beautiful. I just make these videos in hoping that I could help inspire you in some ways with your witchcraft practice. Now, there is a lot that I wanted to say in the beginning of this video to clear up some things that I'm going to be mentioning today. But I think it would make more sense in part 2 in the second video after we've talked about like these examples before we move on to other things. You're going to hear me mention things like words of power from time to time in this video. So that's what we're going to be addressing, looking at it in another light in that second video. But that's enough of me rambling for now. Now, you may be thinking that I'm going to be specifically talking about words of power in this video. Nope. I will be mentioning them, like I said today, from time to time with specific examples. But again, that's not purely what I mean by using sound and your voice in your witchcraft practice. Words of power are actively discussed. Maybe you're thinking, I'm going to be talking about like adding music to your practice, binaural beats or drumming to your practice. Nope. It's super great and useful for the right person. But nope, already actively talked about and not forgotten. Okay, then maybe she's going to be talking about the importance of wording spells and how they have to be worded and said. Absolutely f***ing not. I don't know why I got all gargoyle creepy gremlin with that. Make your magic your own. Unless you're part of a specific tradition, doing a specific ceremony, ritual, etc., where it is and has to be specific, then girl, no. Now, maybe a few of you are thinking, we're going to be talking about sound clearing and sound cleansing. No! We're not. That's not what I'm talking about today. Also, here's your reminder that clearing and cleansing are not the same thing. I talk about it in this video that is going to be up here, and it was my very first video that I ever did for this channel. But I don't mean sound clearing and cleansing when I'm talking about using sound in your voice in your witchcraft practice. I mean utilizing the measurable, energetic sound waves you produce as a tool in your craft, as a point of power, as you are literally and figuratively working with mechanical energy at that point. And sound waves carry power. You carry power. You generate power. When that sound wave hits and then breaks, the sound explodes with power, letting it be heard, or in some cases, seen. You are sending out energy when you talk, when you laugh, when you scream. Not by just the emotion in of itself, which is also insanely powerful, but by the physical act of making sound. You are sending out sound waves that carry and give energy on impact. I hope this doesn't sound buy my $800 essential oil. It'll change your life, guaranteed, or your soul back. Or, whatever. I hope not. I hope you understand what I mean. Anyway, let's give some examples of how sound in general shape and influence different beliefs and practices. Let's break it down. Let's start by going back. Okay, so I'm just going to mention words of power real quick just for clarification on something. So in ancient Egypt, words spoken in rituals were believed to be living forces. Hekau or Heka, I'm going to put the words on screen because my pronunciation even with English isn't that good, or words of power. Priests were trained to chant sacred texts from the Egyptian Book of the Dead in precise intonations. Incorrect pronunciation could void the magic entirely. In this example, the words, their meanings, and how the speaker spoke them, and knowing that the speaker truly understood the meanings of them, impacted everything. It wasn't just about the sound, but the sound paired with knowing the meaning made the impact. I'm going to add on to this real quick. Chanting in of itself feels very powerful to me personally. If you've been here for a while, you know that the majority of my spells rhyme because that is my personal preference. Your spells don't have to rhyme. But for me, it's easier for me to commit it to memory as if it rhymes because then it has a beat to it. And then I could chant it over and over and over again. And with it rhyming, and then after a while of you chanting it, sometimes the words don't even sound like words anymore, but you just end up feeling the meaning of what your spell work is about. At least to me personally. That's why I like my spells to rhyme. But anyway, you have the beats and you have the tone of your voice. Your voice gets stronger. Your voice gets louder, more clear, more sure of yourself. And later on in the other videos, when we get into brain waves and brain entrainment and such. But anyway, with me, with my rhyming spells, I feel the meaning of it after saying it over and over and over again. Again, that is my preference. It does not have to be yours. But going back to Hekau, it goes to words of power, of language. Words of power not only had to be understood for them to work and for them to be able to manipulate reality, but the speaker of them had to match their will with how they said it. If both of these did not line up, it was believed that the magic just wouldn't work. But I wanted to mention this example because there was a lot of confusion that hekaus are sounds of power when they are words of power. The meaning is the power and the conviction is the power, but both have to be aligned. I know this is more of that words of power example, but just in case someone was like, how come this wasn't mentioned? Isn't this a sound of power? They're not, they're words of power. So I'm just mentioning this for clarification. So Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher and mystic, taught that sound and numbers were inseparable. It's getting late, my accent's starting to come out. I'm sorry if it does. He believed that the universe was built on a cosmic scale of vibration, what he called the harmony of spheres. Music, when played correctly, could potentially heal the soul and the body. His ideas laid the foundation for tuning consciousness through vibration, as well as tuning systems that we currently use now in music. If you're not familiar with the harmony of spheres, you might know it as Musica Universalis. It is a concept that celestial bodies like the planets, the sun, the moon, etc., that through their movements, they produce an inaudible sound to the human ear. Which, while it's a concept, it actually helped impact and influence music theory, as we have it today. How cool is that? You know what I mean? That is so freaking cool. But through mathematics, between how the planets were moving and how fast, sorry, I inhaled cat fur. But between how the planets were moving and how fast they were moving, it can be expressed at certain points as musical, according to Pythagoras. So this concept had a ripple effect. Somewhat notably to Johannes Kepler, the father of optics, the Kepler's law of planetary motion, the famed astrologer who influenced Isaac Newton. He also adapted this idea, but with a twist. He didn't believe that the music was audible in any kind of way, but that it was heard by the soul. Beautiful. So the music of the spheres concept comes down to, and the best way to sum this up is from the definition in of itself, and I quote, the metaphysical principle that mathematic relationships expresses qualities or tones of energy that manifest in numbers, visual angles, shapes, and sounds, all connected with a pattern of proportion. End quote. That was worded way better than I could have paraphrased that. Oh my gosh. But okay, think of it this way. The way a music note sounds on a string, I would grab my guitar, but I have a mini harp that's right here. My little beautiful mini harp that is guaranteed most likely out of tune. But the pitch is going to be in proportion to the string. So you see this one? This one is the smallest string here. And this one is the largest string here. So you can see how the length affects the sound. Pythagoras believed that all the celestial spheres all had their own sound or hum based on their orbit. Again, look at the length of the strings. Depending on the size of their orbit, that would affect their sound and the sound pitch. But that affected the quality of life here on Earth because it reflects their harmony. Kind of gives a whole deeper meaning to astrology and how important it was back then. And now how there's not that much difference, but back then there wasn't that much difference between astrology and astronomy, because a lot of people mystically believe that they were tied together or mystically tied together. I have dinner cooking right now and I could smell it. I'm getting hungry and distracted. Let's lock in. But now we could also look at the Schumann Resonance. Resonance, this thing right here. Or what's known to be the heartbeat of the earth in modern times. Because as before, through this theory, it was just seen as the celestial bodies having a heartbeat. Now we could see the earth's in real time. But that kind of leads us into where we can hear certain things because they do in fact make sounds even if we can't hear them. Like the plants in your house. Do you know that plants make noises when stressed? Hopefully I didn't ruin anyone's day with that. My day was ruined when I learned that a few years ago, so we could be miserable together. I feel like most of you guys have probably heard that when you cut into a tomato, it screams and such, and why the smell of grass is so pungent when you cut it because of what's happening to it. But plants actually make this popping or clicking noise when under stress. We just can't hear it. As the plant gets more and more stressed, the louder it gets. Plants generally emit sounds at lower frequencies, between 50 to 120 hertz, I think. They also react to sound. We already know that they can sense certain things. Plants will obviously grow and reach towards the light when they sense the light or any type of light source. But they also react to sound as well as touch. A few years ago, I was lucky enough for one of the places that I go to when those machines that you would hook up to plants to hear them were first starting to come out. And it was this big, huge machine. This was in 2014, 2015, I think. But it changes the biological changes in the plant into a graph, then graphs that wave, and then that wave becomes a pitch or something along those lines. But each plant had a different sound. The oak tree sounded different than the sycamore tree, and the sycamore tree sounded different than a rhododendron bush, and the rock, there was a big granite rock, sounded different than all of it. It was so freaking cool. It was just a really small group of us that were able to witness it. Now I think it's like a little bit more accessible for people to get, but that machine was worth like a few $1,000s like 10 years ago. But it was so cool because they were like, people that were there a lot, they were saying, why don't you try talking to the plant and see if it changes, because you know it's used to hearing your voice. And we would, and the music would change. So a lot of us were kind of like, huh, the plant recognizes us like it's like an animal or a pet kind of deal. But it was still like a lot of fun. It was like a really fun memory thinking back on that. It really sounded so cool. I had a video of it back in the day, but I don't have it anymore. I wonder if I could find like a clip of it or something to either link down or to be able to play real quick. But it has its own very unique sound, like the music that plants make. I'm so ADD in this, I'm so sorry. Medieval grimoires, like the Heptameron and the Key of Solomon, which a lot of people, point out that is a newer book, like the Aor's Goetia stuff is a newer book. We might get into that in another video. But anyway, describe conjurations that emphasize the pronunciation of divine and angelic names. Mostly written in Latin, Hebrew, you know what I mean? It's all with the vibration. Ember Melon's ritual requires like the prolonged, like long chanting. You're going for months with this. Again, the vibration, that's part of it. You can't just speak the words. You have to feel the words with that vibration. Same thing with like in the 16th century with like John Dee and Edward Kelly. It's kind of off topic, but also not at the same time. With Enochian magic, they had a language that, believed to them was dictated by angels. The words had to be vibrated or like intoned correctly to summon specific entities, open an astral gate, etc. They're phonetic keys. Modern science is catching up to like what ancient magicians always claimed, and that sound effects matter. Somatics is the study of how sound affects physical matter and physical form, and it shows us how specific frequencies create geometric patterns in sand, in water, and other materials. Somatics and sigils and dream work and brainwave entrainment are all going to be in part 2, because this topic of itself is so broad and so vast, and how I use it in my personal witchcraft practice is so whoop. So all of that is going to be part 2 in that second video once it comes out, because there is so much in there and they definitely deserve their own video. Similar to that, bioacoustics research shows that vocal frequencies can influence brain waves and mood. This gives modern validation to ancient practices of ancient chanting, mantras, and vibrational intonation. All around us, there's sound, even from things we can't hear. Yes, there's even infra frequency, otherwise known as like the fear frequency, where it's sounds inaudible to the human ear that causes both a physiological and psychological and physical reaction. Is more common in like hauntings, where there's frequencies going on that the human ear can't hear, and it causes all these feelings of fear and paranoia and sensations of someone walking into a room and sensations of being watched. That is a thing that happens in hauntings. It's not always just ghosts. I say hauntings like this because then after the object emitting that frequency was removed, the haunting stopped. When we're working magic or we're doing a spell, there could be a chunk of us that gets wrapped up in the details. Is this candle the right color? What if I don't have this specific herb? What if the moon phase isn't right? Thinking that if one of these things isn't perfect, it'll throw the whole energy off. But do you know what literally and figuratively has energy that I feel like we don't even think about enough? Our voice. We remember that sound has power when we need to bang around some pots and pans if we feel some icky energy, or like, we're ringing a bell or we're banging a drum. We remember that sound has power then, but we seem to forget about it when we're looking at the other details. And I feel like it's something that we already know. We're aware of this, but sometimes we need a little bit of a reminder, because I personally don't really see it discussed. Before I make a video on something, I search it up to make sure that there's not a million videos on it, that everything that I want to say isn't going to be the same thing as somebody else, and I don't want to take content away from somebody else. I could always add on to it, filling in gaps and sharing my perspective, but I want to to talk about things on here that I don't really see talked about enough or actively or maybe with a new twist on them. But when I searched it up, I couldn't find anything. That's why I'm making this videos. So if you know any videos where this is talking about, list them below for other people too with the channel. That way, one, we can help out the channel, and two, if anybody else is looking for additional resources, there's something else. But when I searched it up, I used using your voice in witchcraft. So maybe I used the wrong keywords. The average voice energy is going to vary, but it could vary between 18 to 30 watts in a normal speaking voice. I naturally have a very loud voice. You may notice that even when I'm trying really hard to edit my volume, I blow out my speakers enough. I'm so hungry. I'm so sorry. So I would like to think I'm probably in the higher range. I have to make up for what I lack in height with my voice and my presence. But vowels, their sounds emit short bursts of power, averaging about 50 watts. And shouting something, that could reach over to 3,000 watts of power. The sound wave of your voice can reach up to 590 feet or 180 meters. And remember, your voice is sending out energy in the form of sound waves. You might have seen me in some of my other videos, always clapping and snapping over my spell work and talking to my spells directly. Not just doing my incantations or anything like that, but I'm just talking to my spell. I talk to the herbs that I'm using. I'm sure you might have heard before to tell the herbs their purpose when you're working with them, since there are duality and polarity in herbs. I do that in my practice. You don't have to do that with yours. But besides doing that, I just talk to them. I talk to everything. I always reintroduce myself to my herbs, to my candles, to my stones, to my roots, to my mirrors, to whatever element that I'm working with, be it candles and fire, be it dreams and air, or the fae, or any type of elemental, anything like that, anything that I am working with, I constantly talk to. To me, in my practice, not only am I building a connection with them in a way that works for me, and then layering my spell around that. Remember, I'm talking to each thing as I'm adding it in, and then talking to everything as a whole. But then I am using my voice to physically send out the mechanical energy to each part of that spell that I'm working. Each sound wave rippling out and bursting energy at each thing that I am using to tie in together. Again, that's my practice. That doesn't have to be yours. But to me, not only am I giving life, because I also do the breath of life too, again, my practice, but not only am I giving the spell and the objects that I'm using life, but then I'm further pushing that magic in once I give that blow on it. And that's just one form of the energy that you can produce. I have like a mini quick video on kinetic energy. It's going to be linked up somewhere here. Each of our voices are unique in sound, in tone, in pitch. Your voice is something that is deeply personal. And I mean that in multiple ways. Your voice is your signature. It is completely unique to you. If you've seen my loopholes in spell work videos with like Slipknot spells and how to undo spell work without having to undo everything or do everything backwards or ripping up or breaking things with mirror shards or anything like that, I mention that one of the Slipknots can be a certain word that you say. Your voice is your signature, and you're using it to sign up on your spells without even realizing it or thinking about it. I feel like that sounded so fear-mongering. I didn't mean that in a fear-mongery. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you know what I mean. Anyway, but let's circle back. Words can be conduits for magic and energy. Yeah, sure, of course. But please don't forget that your voice can be also. When you're speaking out loud, you're using multiple of your senses. You can feel the words in your mouth, sometimes from your chest. You can hear yourself saying it, further cementing it in. You're bringing it from in here and here to out here and then back in here, making it a full circle, because not only is it cemented now in your head again, but it's also brought out here. It's got that outward momentum. Saying it out loud and tasting the words and feeling the emotions from it, and then hearing it back is very, what's the word I want to use? Affirming to me. For me personally, hearing something verbally kind of sticks it in my ear a little bit longer and then into my brain a little bit longer, and it does it louder than like reading it or writing it will, if it's something that I really need to remember or focus on. But when I hear something, it like replays the conversation again for like a nanosecond. It like repeats everything, and then it echoes in my ears and then into my brain and mind, if that makes sense. And that way I could put that as the main focus when I'm working with something. There's also like, that type of deal of once you say something out loud, you can't really take it back. You can't take back what's said. And that could either work in your favor or make you truly think about your words. And to me, at least, when you hear something being said out loud, you can hear how you sound about it. The voice that we hear in our head when we're thinking something never changes in volume. When it's narrating our thoughts, it never actually changes in volume. But saying something out loud, we can hear if we sound confident and sure, or if we need to keep saying it until we sound more confident and sure, or if we need to say it louder, or if we need to say it sweeter. I'm not good at the sweet voices, I'm so sorry. I have a customer service voice because of work and I sound like a completely different person. But whatever it is that needs to fit our focus, our goal, our intention, our spell, our magic, and then we can say it as many times as we need to, because each time we're doing so, we're building up the energy for it with each sound wave. You're giving it that energy push.
Say it with your chest.
Your voice can be used to anchor in the energy of your spells in so many different ways. Through laughter, through chants, through humming, through singing, through cries of ecstasy. Through shouting, through vibration, through whistling, if you can. You can just start by having a conversation with your deities, if you have any. Your ancestors, loved ones, fetches, familiars, spiritual allies, your house, your room, a meadow, or whatever room or place that you're in to perform the energy and the magic, or even just talk to yourself. You can just build up that energy first by literally painting the space with your voice and the energy that comes with it. If talking out loud is weird for you and you want to start to try to use your voice more, blast some songs that fit like your current vibe and energy and intention of what you're doing your spell or magic for, and sing along to that. Just get used to hearing your voice out loud. Don't be ashamed or afraid of your voice. You could call someone up and have a conversation with them. Talk to a pet. Your voice is yours, and it is your own personal power. Use it consciously, since most of you guys seem to have been using it unconsciously. Speaking of the unconscious, I think we'll end it here, so that way, right from the spot in the next video, we can get into some really interesting things with sound and witchcraft and oniric magic and some things that I do in my personal practice that will maybe give you guys some helpful tips. I'm hoping this video was helpful. If you enjoyed this video and if you made it this far, can you just leave the talking emoji for me, or anything that makes sound? Anything that makes sound, because I'm trying to figure out if the educational, quick information videos are helpful at all, if they're helping respur things for you or anything else like that. So if you like it, you could like the video and then just do anything that has sound if you enjoyed this and if this was helpful for you. Again, maybe some of you guys were already doing this in your practice. But since I couldn't find anything on it here on YouTube, I wanted to give you guys the reminder. Or, tips if this is your first time really thinking about it in the energy sense. Not just saying the spell and bringing the spell to life that way because you're saying the words of it. The actual sound and energy behind your voice. I also linked all the videos that, that were up here in the description too, just in case you're new here and you want to check out any of those. But again, no pressure. We'll pick up from here next Saturday and get weird. Same time, same place. Where else am I going to upload? I upload at 8 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday on this channel. Anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day, evening, night, energy, space, no matter what time of it is when you are watching this. And I really, truly hope that good things happen to you. Goodbye!